Yeah, live. Hello and welcome everyone to Crick Tips. It was the big game RCB versus CSK, Kohli versus Dhoni, and it quite started off with quite a brilliant partnership and many other things which we'll often come to in this video. I've worn yellow to celebrate the eventual winners of the match, CSK, who gather yet another win that takes them to the top of the table. With me, I have Nishit and Jay, my regular friends' faces you see every day in our channel. And I'll come straight away to Jay asking about how does he feel about RCB's brilliant opening partnership that extended more than a century. Even though they lost the game, they'd be happy with that particular aspect of the game.
Yeah, definitely, Vaibhav. From the last match that we saw, when they got out at 90, at 92, I guess, and then after that, Kohli said that this was actually a wake up call to them, and I guess they have actually woken up and come back with their game much stronger. We saw Virat Kohli opening up really good, and Devdutt Paddikal was assisting him really well. And when you look into their game, they were playing decent shots, but they were not going into that in a risky kind of play where they would be losing wickets. So they had maintained a healthy run rate and they were rotating the strikes and they came up to, I guess, around a century. This was the highest partnership for RCB at the opening position at no loss. So, this was another achievement for the opening partnership, that is Virat Kohli and Devdutt Paddikal. And then once that went out, so after that, we all saw what happened later on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm coming back to that. I'll ask Nishit. The first 10 overs of RCB's batting were 90 for 0, everything rosy, everything nice. Usual Sharjah, entry for teams. So batting first. Then RCB slumped to 66 for 6 in the last 10 overs. CSK bowled very well, or RCB batted poorly, or somewhere in the middle. How do you see it?
Yeah, so hello everyone, welcome to Quick Tips. Once again, a great match. The way the CSK bowlers bowled in the death was really good. A very inspired bowling lineup. The trio of Shardul, Bravo, and Chahar
Lord
was
Shardul, yeah.
quite.
He's got a name for himself. He's
Yeah.
Lord
So,
Shardul.
right. So Lord Jadeja finally found his match. So and Jadeja also, apart from the three seam bowlers, Jadeja also was finding a lot of spin because initially the new ball was not that effective, and the batsmen, like as Jay rightly mentioned, Kohli and Paddikal looked quite menacing. They dominated the play quite from the ball get go, and they were easily dominating the players. But as after the 10 overs, and especially in the last five, the slog overs, as we say, the ball at the moment it started getting worn out and the beat became old, it started turning a lot, and Jadeja was getting a lot of spin, and the Yorkers and the leg break, the leg cutters from the fast bowlers were quite effective from the CSK bowlers. And even in the post-match presentation, Dhoni talked about the importance of Bravo as a player. He mentioned that Bravo is like a younger brother to him, and the slower ball that is one of the most effective weapons in the kitty of Bravo, is very effective. So a special mention to Bravo's slower ball by Dhoni. And he told that despite he being such a senior player, his performance always motivates the other players. And the slower ball by Bravo was very effective in the trio. Like yesterday also we talked about how some like spin bowlers, or how a couple of maybe the combination of a senior player working with a junior bowler, etc., can work wonders. But this trio of Thakur, Bravo, and uh, the Shardul, Bravo, right? So this trio, it was quite effective, and it helped CSK bounce back. I mean, the way Kohli, the RCB started, I felt that they might cross 200. But as it has been happening in all the matches, apart from the low scoring one, we feel that the teams might go beyond 200, but then they end up scoring uh, a very low score, a below par score. So 150 always seemed an average score, which was quite easily uh, crossed. So I guess CSK bowlers, good job, kudos to them.
Yes, I mean, it's very noteworthy to speak about what Bravo has done. Last year he became the first to 500 T20 wickets ever. And even at the vein of his career, we are seeing him batting. We are seeing it. I'll just take a minute to go back to CPL 2021. Bravo was part of the victorious Trinbago Knight Riders camp in CPL 2020. And for this year's edition of that tournament, he went back to St. Kitts, Nevis and Keats and Patriots. So it was to get new challenges. At this time of his career, he went over there, he led the team, and he led the team to the title. Here he has come with great confidence. We saw in the first game, in that Mumbai game, he came and scored 23 of 8 balls at the end. Today, figures of 3 for 24 in 4 overs in Sharjah. I mean, it's hands down a man of the match performance, which he eventually deserved. Going forward, I mean, speaking about Chennai's chase, it was 156 was never enough, right? Even though Sharjah was playing slow, the pitch was turning. We spoke about Jadeja's spin. About Sharjah's surface, we'll speak about a bit more later in the show. But at the end, 156 was just not enough, right, Jay?
Yeah, actually, when we talk about the kind of game that we were expecting, like Nishit rightly pointed out, we were expecting a score of 180, 200. We were expecting Maxwell to come out and, do some of his magic, or AB de Villiers to, hold on to what the kind of start that Kohli had gotten for them. But when we saw, when we talk about these two batsmen, the break between the two leg of the IPL. So these two, they haven't gotten those many matches. So because of that, I guess they have not been able to put out a decent kind of performance, or they need a bit of momentum to get their engines roaring again. And so 156 was really, they were 20, 30 runs short from a decent total, which they might have had a better chance defending. On the other hand, when you talk about CSK, everybody knows their batting lineup goes deep, and it goes really deep. When you talk from the openers to Dhoni coming out, Raina, and till the end, we are having Wayne Bravo and even Sunil Nareen also, sometimes even he's doing his job with the bat. So 166 for CSK is really not that good of a tool.
Yeah, and to speak about the batting depth in the CSK lineup, that on days when they can play Sam Curran for Josh Hazelwood, they'd have Muin Ali, Jadeja, Bravo, Sam Curran,
Right.
Exactly.
Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar coming at number 11. Deepak Chahar just won India a match 6 months ago in Sri Lanka. I mean,
Right.
3 months ago in Sri Lanka with the bat. So that's what Dhoni likes. As a captain, he might not he's well past his prime in terms of his batting, but he still is someone who'd like to take 11 batsmen, 7 bowlers, and just take the decisions on the spot. If there ever was an award to give improv for decisions on the cricket field, MS Dhoni would have won that. I mean, it's just another game where they did right. Nishit, before we move on to the discussion of the day, which is quite interesting, do you think RCB's bowling was disappointing, or what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, the RCB bowlers, they weren't that effective, because we saw a sheer contrast in the way the bowlers of both the teams performed. Like we can draw like a stark contrast, because the bowlers, the intent was missing, I feel. Teams like KKR, which weren't able to perform that well in the first leg of the IPL, they are performing well because they have a point to prove. And teams like RCB, I feel that, which were well placed comparatively, based upon the performance in the first leg of the IPL, I guess may have become a bit complacent, and are not performing with that intent, because obviously they had a point to prove. And after the drubbing in the first match, and after rumor mongers saying that Virat Kohli stepping down as the captain is the beginning of his fall, and there was a lot of the team and the captain, they both had a lot of things to prove. So obviously the captain tried to do his part. He gave a good start, but then the bowlers obviously had a very less target to defend. But then I felt that the bowlers weren't that, as we discussed in some sessions earlier, that Chahal is the go-to bowler for Kohli, and he
Took a
wants him
wicket
to.
today.
Yeah, he took a wicket today, and he had a decent economy. So, Chahal from being dropped in the game, in the from the Indian team and coming back, and now I guess today was a decent performance on Chahal's part, but
Right.
the whole thing couldn't come together.
Yeah,
together. Yeah,
for
so
someone who's followed, I mean, I have followed RCB's game over the years very closely, and Yeah, RCB is a very good batting side. They have got Kohli, De Villiers, they had Gale. But as in, suppose I put myself on the shoes of an RCB fan, the days I'm most happy is when my bowling wins them games, because I remember in 2016-17, even if RCB posted 200 in their home ground, Chinnaswamy, 15th, 16th over into the chase, Kohli just looking around to the bowlers and say, whom am I going to, who can help me stop this chase of 200 plus, which has happened a lot. And in this game also, it was slightly different. 156. The pitch behaved very differently in the last 10 overs of RCB's batting. So it was just about, even if they don't win, it was just about how difficult they make it the task for CSK. And at the end, they got it in 18.1 overs or so. I mean,
Right. And something more that I would like to add is that, as you rightly mentioned, like building up from your point, I mean, despite RCB having a lot of great batsmen in their team over the years, but despite like De Villiers and Kohli and Gale and Watson and who not, like they've been scoring more than 200 runs, but despite scoring 200 plus scores quite often, they still don't have that confidence that will their bowlers be able to defend that target. So this shows the lack of options that Kohli has. I mean, CSK's death bowling and RCB's poor death bowling, like that was the result. That was the reason behind the result that we see today. I mean, Mohammad Siraj was like a toothless tiger in the match. He was not able to take a wicket, just 24 runs in 3 overs, and then even Hasaranga was not that effective. Nishant has always been a fan of Hasaranga. He talked
Yeah,
about how he can make a change, but he has been like he is not effective with the bat also. Like he's a good all-rounder for Sri Lanka, so to speak, but here also he was like uh, easily hit for sixes by the batsmen in both his overs, and so not even in the start. So that's the feel. Like as you rightly mentioned that Chahal surprisingly performed quite well. So if you bowl with some intent, like you had a point to prove, Chahal being dropped from the team, questions being asked about his fitness and about his economy rate soaring up that we discussed in the previous analysis. He had a point to prove, and he was the best out of the lot for RCB. But the other bowlers not quite well. And when you have such a less score to defend, you need to give
exactly.
out the best. And
yeah.
unfortunately, that didn't
I
work
guess
out for
like
them.
the kind of score that they had already had the morale down a bit, and then the
Right.
one on one, we saw Harshal Patel, even he didn't bowl that bad of figures, but it just wasn't their day. They tried to cope up, but like as you mentioned, Hasaranga hadn't stepped up, and the total was not that decent. And another thing that I would like to disagree with you on is that when you said that RCB is getting complacent, you are forgetting that they still haven't qualified, they still haven't won a single IPL trophy. This is their last season with Virat Kohli as their captain. And so, with all of that, I guess there is no other team that has more of a point to prove other than RCB. So, them getting complacent is something that is really bad on their part, I guess. Because, in the last match, they got a wake up call. This match, I would say, the batsmen they didn't show up. They hadn't been up to the mark, and the same with the bowling lineup. They tried to do their part, but again, it just wasn't their day. And hearing continuously, hearing the captain come up and say that, that they haven't done this right, they haven't done that right, and maybe somewhere it hadn't been their days. That has become a kind of a routine for Virat Kohli. With
Yeah, and I mean, Kohli has changed
yeah,
teams. Even countries have been changed. We have shifted to UAE, but UAE obviously seems more nightmarish for RCB and co.
Seventh consecutive loss. Yeah,
Seventh consecutive loss and fifth consecutive
absolutely.
victory for Chennai in UAE.
Oh,
So
oh,
contrasting figures for both the teams, and I guess
yeah.
this sums up the essence of today's game that both have. One is quite easily sailing on the victories of the previous match, and RCB failing once again.
Yeah, just about Jay, speaking about how RCB has points to prove. I mean, Jay, you could speak to me offline about a 3 hour phone call with me, and I'm gonna tell you about the points to prove for RCB. Years and years of just so many variables for
True.
them to prove a point. I mean, that takes on that breath. I shall introduce the discussion of the day, which is like an interesting one because with the sample size of IPL 2020's games in Sharjah. And just today was the first game of IPL 2021 here at this ground. Small ground, dimensions are small, batsmen come and hit big. Today was slightly different. We saw spin for Jadeja. We saw RCB's batting struggling, the cutters coming off. I mean, just a prediction, or I mean, given if you have to extrapolate the nature of Sharjah in the remaining games, not many of them, 6 or 7. So I mean, but it's gonna be interesting. Like, how do you think the Sharjah pitch is gonna play? Jay, I'll come to you first. Just
I guess while going on the back, the cricketers, they are going to get used to the pitch, and I am feeling they'll go back to their high scoring total, because today might just not have been their day, and the bowling performed really good with with CSK, so that is why they didn't even have that big of a total to chase later on. So we might see totals going above 180, 200. So that would be really entertaining, and that would be fun to watch.
yeah, I mean, Nishit.
Yeah, so a smaller ground. So obviously you want the players to go big, and you smaller boundary always helps. So it will be quite challenging for the bowlers, and the bowlers will have a huge course to work against. They will have an uphill task, but I feel that there's, as Devdutt Paddikal mentioned in the post-match presentation, that the Sharjah pitch today. I mean, who knows that it might turn out to be the same way in the coming matches, but it was a two-paced wicket. It behaved quite differently. So initially it offered the new ball help, but then as we discussed some time back, the ball, like it was gripping, and it was the pitch turned slow. It was Jadeja was getting a lot of spin, and it was quite it was bouncing a bit, and it was making life hell for the batsmen in the slog overs. So I guess it will be very interesting, all the matches in the Sharjah, especially because smaller ground, it will help the batsmen, but I guess towards the end, when it matters the most, it might help the bowlers as well. So fingers crossed for excited matches at Sharjah, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are two schools of thought. One,
Right.
in IPL 2020, there were enough matches in Sharjah to be played where we start off with a very beautiful batting surface where Sanju Samson does well, and there is so
Right.
much cricket after a point of time that there is the pitch goes through wear and tear for it to slow down and make run scoring difficult. IPL 2021, we have just got around 6 or 7 games, so I don't think the pitch is going to change as much as it usually does when we play more number of games on a particular stadium. And this was the first thing. Secondly, I just feel that because it is such a small ground, players like Pollard, Pandya, AB de Villiers, Maxwell, they would just back their strength. Like, we have seen the changes in bat these days, 5 6 years, since the last 5 6 years, even connections like which even you just get half of it on your bat. They are so powerful people.
Right.
They're just gonna back their power to clear the boundary, and that's why I feel Sharjah's ground, irrespective of the pitch, assistance to the bowlers, batsman is gonna take chances. So there are days
Right.
when we get low scores, very low scores, because everyone's coming, hitting, getting out, and then it's almost like a lottery thing. So
Right.
interesting times. I'm looking forward to it. The games here in Sharjah. Interesting thing though, we got a sandstorm in the start of the game. We
Right.
everyone speaks about the Sachin storm in 1998. Like, I was not born that time, so I never saw it. But a sandstorm, so that's great. I mean, that brings that end to this conversation. Before we say goodnight to everyone, we'll just bring you a small preview to tomorrow's first game, which is Delhi Capitals versus Rajasthan. And it's the first afternoon game of the UAE leg in IPL 2021. So, I mean, I'll come to Jay first. What are you expecting from this match? I mean, just what would you like to see in this game, and whom do you think would be the top run scorer of the match?
I would I would like to see Delhi Capitals coming back into form. Talking to a person who is a supporter of Delhi Capitals, I guess
Coming back,
that would be really good.
they never
When
went out. Yeah.
seeing Shreyas Iyer and Rishabh Pant, getting back into that partnership, or watching Shikhar Dhawan just hit the ball away and getting the orange cap. So those kinds of things would be really what I would be looking forward to.
And yeah, highest run score.
Highest run scorer, I guess, would be Shreyas Iyer, because the way he has come back, I guess he's just wanting to make up for all that he lost, for the kind of time that he has lost, or of the game. So I guess he is going to come back with the same momentum like he did last time.
Yeah, pretty bad time to get an injury though. 6 months ahead of a world Cup, and also Surya Kumar Yadav came in, and yeah, point to prove for him as well. Nishit,
sure.
what are you expecting from the game, and whom do you think would take the most wickets in tomorrow's match?
And yeah, so the after I start, I also want the people from DC Toli, led by you, to also answer. I mean, we want your inputs about tomorrow's match as well. So I feel that Shikhar Dhawan will be the highest run scorer. Hopefully, he will be, and like his performance will be inspiring for the team. And I guess now they're shifting from Dubai to Abu Dhabi for this match.
Yeah,
So, and in 2020, last year, DC's performance in Abu Dhabi hasn't been that great, comparatively speaking. So, I guess they would like to change that record. And the pitch there has been quite slow, and especially the the main out of the lot for DC, Rabada and Notje, they would like to be quite effective. I mean, the way Warner was sent off home was quite humiliating by Notre in the last match, and I guess we would like to see. And then we have Tyagi once again. How he performs for RR will also be something that would be very special to watch. But I feel that Shikhar Dhawan and Shreyas Iyer's partnership will be quite crucial. Jai was quite bang on with his prediction, like Devdutt Paddikal should perform, and he did perform. So let's hope that if Shreyas Iyer performs or Shikhar Dhawan performs, all in all, it's good for DC Toli. But we want you also to shed some light about how DC will perform
yeah.
or who will be the best out of the lot.
Yeah, I mean, people at DC told they are just very excited for tomorrow's game. We
For
have got
sure.
a team to paint our faces, and also don't worry, don't be surprised if I come across with red and blue. No, I'm just a neutral over here.
Dwayman, I would just like you to shed more light on what you would be looking out for from Rajasthan
Right.
Royals instead of what you are looking forward to from Delhi Captains.
It's just very
True.
difficult to do, when Delhi plays, it's a difficult task, but I'm definitely gonna give it some effort, time, and energy. I'll try and look into a very I don't know, you could say mercurial Rajasthan side or whatnot. Lots of more content coming through that match. We are gonna be back maybe in the same time. We might come before as well. So
Right.
please do stick with us, like, share, comment anything you want us to speak about. So that's about it for today's game. It's been a long discussion. Thank you, Jay, Nishit, being here every night, listening to my. I don't know. I mean, you can judge whether my voice is good or not. Thank you, guys, everyone. Good night. Good night.
Okay.